Welcome to WitchLit, a place to talk about the craft of writing and writing the craft. I'm your host, Victoria Raschke, author, publisher, witch, and nosy Scorpio. You can support WitchLit and the serious book habit it requires at ko-fi.com/WitchLitPodcast. And you can be part of the show by sending in your own death, sex, religion, politics, money questions for our guests to victoria@witchlitpod.com. If you like what we're doing here, please subscribe and give us a rating or review wherever you listen to podcasts. It really does help other witches find the show. Here's to never getting to the bottom of our to-be-read piles. Ash McKernan is a psyche-therapist, counselor with the MFT, who loves to spend time at the crossroads where psyche, nature, magic, and healing intersect. Author of the book Wyrd, Healing Self and Nature Through the Mysteries of Fates. Ash McKernan, welcome to WitchLit.
Thanks. Yeah, you can just call me Ash. That's fine.
Yeah, I noticed in the stuff you sent, like you definitely go by Ash, and the book is under Matthew Ash. I thought, oh, maybe there's another author with a similar name or something there. So
it's complicated, but yeah, I have multiple names. But,
okay, yep. Well, we'll just go with Ash, and then I will ask you the first question we ask everybody: is why write books?
Why write books? Well, for me,
or write in general, but I guess in your case, specifically books.
yeah. To get it out, that was like a big thing for me, just to have it, I guess, bounce around the world and not just my mind. There's expression, just expressing. In a way, I don't know, it's making me think of flowing, just the flow state. And, I guess I started writing music before I started writing actually written word, but, there's lyrics and songs. Mm-hmm. So I have been writing music a while, and I don't know, it's always it's felt good. It's felt good to put feelings and emotions and questions and thoughts into form, to bring it into the world, to let it loose, to let it go. And I don't know, it's almost like, the words, the concepts have kind of a life of their own, or a being of their own, and they want to explore too. They don't just want to be walking in circles around in my mind, so to let them out and to understand myself too. I think that's what I realized writing Wyrd was, I think I initially started to write it for myself, just as a way to put my thoughts together and to write down kind of like my theory of everything, in a way, like my understanding of reality and mind and soul, like things I've been thinking about for a really long time. And I maybe I'm getting ahead of myself with this answer, but when I found that concept of Wyrd, it connected the dots, put everything together, and helped me to explain a lot of what was going on within me and around me in a really magical way, and it felt really good. So it just had to come out. And so honoring that flow, honoring the life of the words and the concepts, and seeing where they will go.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I feel like, in talking to a lot of writers, just like writers I know and writers on the show, like there does seem like it's just, a lot of us just can't not write. Like once you have this idea, we kind of have to transfer it out into the world, whether it's fiction or nonfiction or, whatever you write, poetry, music. It's like unhealthy, I guess, almost to let it sit and not express it in some way. So I think, we're all kind of in good company with that idea.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something about the sharing of the vision that that's a part of the whole process, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if it gets stuck inside, it can eat one alive, so to speak, from the inside out, or it can do something.
So I guess it's a good, like, where in the process of writing. So like, you know, a lot of people just write for themselves. They write a journal or morning pages or whatever. And then,
Mm-hmm.
so what was the difference between I have to get this idea out on paper to think about what I think about it, and I have to get this idea out and publish it to share it? Like, what was that journey like for you?
The the flip from doing it for me and then offering it to others, kind
Mm-hmm.
of. Um, well, I think I think there was always that wanting to offer it to others in there, but I didn't know how, so to speak. It just, and because like I said, I've been a musician for a while, and it's really fun to write a song and to share it and to see the impact on others. And it's really fun to feel the impact of listening to someone else's song or watching a band live or reading another's book. It's just there's something magical about this relationship and kind of this circle of the creator and the listener, and it's or the band and the audience, or um so I think it was kind of twofold. I was definitely doing it for myself, for my own sanity in a way. And it's kind of strange, weird, so to speak, but it felt like the forest uh, wanted wanted me to write it. It wanted it. It felt like the forest said, "Tell people what we're thinking," in a way, or we have a message
Mm-hmm.
or something. And the forest said, "We have a message," and you are kind of like I don't know, a channel through which that message will flow into the world, into the human mind, so to speak, from the mind of nature into the mind of human, which, human and nature are the same. But um, yeah, so that's kind of a, I don't know, trippy way to think about it. But
You
yeah,
know,
and also being a therapist.
mm-hmm.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I think, I don't, I always feel like sometimes, I mean, I write fiction, but I feel like sometimes the story writes itself. It's like almost,
Mm,
you know, once you tap into those characters or the story, like it, yeah, it just wants to get out and wants to. So I think that makes sense to me. Like, it doesn't seem that weird,
hmm.
quotation marks,
Yeah,
to me, that
yeah,
you kind of are a channel for this in some ways. So,
hmm,
or a conduit,
yeah, like,
maybe. Yeah.
yeah, conduit. Yeah, these archetypes that are in all the books, and they they have a way. They have their own ways or something, and they do their thing, and they want to live.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think it's the same. Forest wants to live, wants to continue living. Nature wants to stay alive and continue evolving and changing and becoming whatever it's meant to become. So
Yeah. So I'm thinking kind of we had talked a little bit back and forth on an email, and one of the things I really liked about what you said was like, you know, kind of this desire to talk about a book as not just an artifact, but like a thing in and of itself, and like what that means to put, you know, your book and the thoughts in the book into the world, into the web. Like,
mm,
do you want to kind of elaborate on that? I don't know. I think it's just and not. I don't know that it's a singular way to look at it, but I think it's an
mm,
important way to think about the energy of your work and your words. So,
mm. As the book as kind of being like a being or something,
mm-hmm.
the finished book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I guess, yeah, for me, it was a very weird experience and process. And I mean weird in the sense both WEIRD and WYRD,
Mm-hmm.
that it was strange, bizarre, kind of mysterious, but it also kind of, there was that fate and destiny and magic and soul kind of element and experience happening, where like you said, it's like the book writes itself or something. And or the ideas and the concepts have a life of their own, and they want to be born into the world, or they want to wander. They they want to live and breathe and just do what we want to do too.
Mm-hmm.
And almost as like they are in search of something, just as humans are in search of something. And some so as this book kind of came to a conclusion, it was a long process, but it did and does seem like it is the forest. It is the kind of the word of the forest, or the being of the forest in word form, and but also kind of the fates, and that and Wyrd being kind of this goddess, or Wyrd being a being or a force that does have an intelligence of its own, that somehow fits it fits within these like 300 pages or so. Of course, there's so much more that it could, you could write about it endlessly, really. But yeah, it's somehow got contained within these pages, and it I don't know where it'll go. I don't know what that Wyrd, being, what will happen from it. And it's kind of scary, actually, to imagine, because I don't know, I put a lot of myself into it, and I put myself out there, and kind of, I don't know. I'm a first time author too. Mm-hmm. So it feels edgy. As much as I love to express, through music or dance or writing, it's always an edgy process, being seen and heard. And so yeah, this being, so to speak, or this book, whatever you want to call it, mm-hmm. It's kind of like a spell. It's kind of like it is a magical being, because that book is now in the world, and it sends ripples. It changes consciousness, and any book does this, fiction, nonfiction. That there is power in every letter and how they're put together into words, and so. But I do think that whatever happens, I did my best to stay stay a clear channel as possible, and let kind of love be kind of a guiding force within that. So whatever does come of it, and whatever that book actually is, because it is more than just a book with words and pages, as is any book. It's I do hope that love will be a big part of what it's doing in the world, and just awareness, like making people think, question, look at things differently, and being a mirror also, as helping people to kind of see themselves more clearly and see the world more clearly, and helping people to remember. That's kind of a big theme in the book, is this mm-hmm. idea of remembering something that we already know deep down. It's just kind of covered up with all these layers. And so it is weird. It is.
Well, and maybe that's a good opportunity to kind of, I guess, for folks who haven't read the book, like it probably be good, like for the rest of our conversation, for them to have like a working definition of how you use Wyrd, Wyrd, in the book, and how you
Mm-hmm.
talk about that. That might, I don't know if that's something you can do in like a potted answer.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Um, weird with a Y. Yeah. It's an ancient word, comes from Germanic cultures, Anglo-Saxon. It's associated with the Norse cosmology as well. But the basic kind of gist is that it's a being, it's a goddess, a force, it's nature, and mystery, and magic, and soul, and in this process of becoming, which is both fated and destined. So there's kind of this natural process. It's kind of like Tao, like the Chinese concept of Tao. And yeah, so the way I use it is kind of an interweaving of all those things. And I'm not offering any definitive, I'm not saying this is what it is and that's it. I'm just kind of welcoming people to the gates of Wyrd, as I like to imagine it, and saying, "Oh, do you want to go in? You want to go in together? You want to go in by yourself? It's weird in there, and I do think weird as we use it today it's the same thing. It's synchronicity when that happens, or whenever we do like a tarot reading or a divination thing, that's weird. That's this being or this goddess. Whenever synchronicity happens, that's kind of like, that's Wyrd peeking through the veil and saying, "Hey, I'm here." And you could also call it the call of the fates. So whenever those things happen, it's like, "Hey, you're on the right path," or go in this direction, or keep it up, or be really aware right now. So that's kind of in a nutshell.
yeah.
I could say more, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh no. Again, I think it's one of those things easily write about indefinitely. I was thinking about like,
Mm-hmm.
I agree that I think we still use the word weird that way, but I think we also use
Mm-hmm.
weird as something that deviates from the norm or the mainstream, whatever the current definition of that is. And
Mm-hmm.
like to kind of, it's almost like a othering of that. Like this
Mm-hmm.
is, so what, like if that is the way someone approaches the weird, is there a way? I mean, I guess you talk about this in the book, and it's really almost the, I guess, almost the thesis of the book is like, how do you reincorporate that? How do you then look at the weird as not something other than you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, what that question kind of makes me think of is that weird also historically, but also now, like you're saying, I think historically it was an othered thing too, because weird was also doom or death, this kind of scary unknown mystery. And that's why I think the fates in general are kind of, they're almost outside of the pantheons of gods and goddesses. They're kind of othered even from them, and even the gods fear them, at times. So it's weird as being something different or other. It makes total sense, because that usually happens with the unknown. We do that with something that we don't know about, and it's something that scares us, or that we just don't understand. So it's not a comfortable feeling. That most people don't enjoy that feeling of not knowing what's going to happen or what is happening. So I think as far as incorporating it or bringing it back, even those experiences that are not fun, that they're somehow a part of each of our becoming. Like bad things happen, people die, tragedy comes, traumas happen, and they're a part of making us who we are and how we are. I wouldn't have written this book if I didn't fall out of a second story window when I was a toddler, and and then have other near death experiences in my life, and other quote unquote bad things happen. But they're a part of who I am. They're a part of my wholeness. And I think Wyrd, the dark, the scary, the death, the uncomfortable, the painful, the terrible is a part of the wholeness that is becoming this, whatever it is, whatever this mystery is. And we're a big part of that. Somehow human beings have gained this ability to kind of conceptualize all this and make sense of it. So yeah, we each have our own inner Wyrd that we need to look at to become more whole, to understand ourselves more and more. And Wyrd, I don't know. That's the last thing I'll say on that, I guess, is that Wyrd is an experience. And it's, everybody has a different experience of what Wyrd is. And sometimes they overlap with, we have overlapping definitions, but sometimes it's personal. So, the experience of Wyrd invites one into it, just like the mysteries invite you in, say, oh, if you want to learn about me, you got to come closer. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that and reading the book, that because you do start the book with the story about you falling out of the second story window when you were a toddler, and I was like, whoa, that sets us in a place, and this is everything, like you said, it's a lot of, there is a lot of your personal experience of the Wyrd in this book. And I really liked how you talk about that Wyrd is a feeling, that it's this somatic experience. Like when you experience the Wyrd, it isn't just, oh, that was weird. Like often there's a full body response to those kind of things. And I just think about, like the time, I was thinking it's something like even as small as deja vu, like when you have that and it just takes you out of your time for a minute to look at that. And I don't know, I think I've just always been a person who's been drawn to that feeling, like the why of it or the how of it or like that. And so I think other folks who've had that same kind of why, how experience will enjoy the book, because I think it's a way to examine it a little more closely. So,
I think witches are just kind of, witches are folk who have who are really drawn to Wyrd, to that feeling, whatever you call it, the deja vu moment, or the strange dream, or magic, or spirit, just all the quote unquote weird things that normal, what is outside of normal, whatever that means for the time and space. But yeah, I do think Wyrd is very much a witchy thing, and witches have a higher tolerance for weirdness. They've experienced more of it and have found the magic in it. They've found that there's beauty in weirdness, and that there's power and just nature. It just feels natural, as strange as it may be. It pulls one in, pulls one closer, even though it may be scary. It's like, what's that?
Yeah. I mean, I think I've had experiences that I was still frightened. I mean, I'm not saying I just jump in and let's go. But a lot of them, yes. But some, I mean, I think it's like you said, it can be very frightening and very upsetting, even sometimes, when things happen or you just don't. And I don't know, really early on in the podcast, I had a friend of mine on who's a writer, and she's also a scientist. So she has this very scientific way of looking at things. And, for her, magic is science we just can't explain yet. That there is an explanation. And though, my skeptical part agrees with her, part of me is I think it might be more than that. I don't know that it's something we will ever be able to explain as humans. Like, I'm not sure that's because it, like you said about the fates, it is kind of outside of what we can experience or even know. So,
yeah, it's just like the witch is outside of society, lives kind of on the outskirts and has one foot in the dark and one foot in the light, or, is in that liminal space.
yeah.
It's a scary thing to, part of, I think, part of Weirdcraft, just the idea of it is it does kind of put it in through mystical lens, or a spiritual kind of non-dual, almost Eastern lens. So, where there's a certain amount of ego death that occurs, as one goes into the liminal, and explores witchy currents, whatever the currents may be. You have to look at death. You go into nature, right? It's creation, destruction, all of it. It's everything. And it's gonna possibly, include the death of one's ego in order to explore deeper layers of it. And but we're drawn to it. I think that's the funny or weird, or I don't know, thing, is that we're both kind of scared of it and drawn to it at the same time. And I think that's the fate and destiny aspect of it, that it's inevitable. Like we want to know who and what we really truly are, deep down. We strive for meaning and purpose, and when we don't find that, we're not as happy as we'd like to be, or and when we do, it feels like we're in the flow. We're doing something important, and it's going somewhere. It's leading somewhere. And
yeah, I think you're right. I think people who are drawn to witchcraft and the occult, as well as people who are drawn to things like psychotherapy. Like, I mean, I think it's like this willingness to look at the whole of experience and not just the easy, pretty parts sometimes. Like that, I think there's finding beauty in darkness, but I think there's also like a willingness to confront darkness too, like in ourselves. And I think that, I don't know, that part to me just really came out in the book, just this idea that, yeah, this isn't always going to be comfortable. And that's how you grow. That's like what you said, your edge is this, this uncomfortable place to be. And, and I think for me, like one of the things, like I've really wrestled with like reading more and kind of getting more into Norse and Germanic ways of the occult, just because, and you bring this up in the book, and other people I've had on the show who've talked about heathenry and the occult, because it's been that well's been poisoned a little bit by current like white supremacist nationalist movements who've co-opted a lot of the imagery. I don't feel like they've co-opted the understanding. I feel like they've just co-opted the imagery and their own, take on things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of have put it off because of that. And so I think it was really interesting for me to approach your book and look at it and go, okay, you address it pretty much from the start in the book. And then also like once that's off the table, then it was easier to kind of go, okay, I know this is a place where that's not what I'm going to encounter in this book. And like I could embrace thinking about it in a way, because I am drawn to a lot of the imagery and I don't, like some of this, I don't think it's genetic. I mean, yes, I'm Swedish and German ancestry, but I have a Swedish and German ancestry. I do not consider myself Swedish or German because I wasn't born and I don't live there, but I have that ancestry. But I don't think it's just about ancestry. I think it is about the archetypes too. And I liked that you addressed that in the book and made space for this conversation around why this is difficult for some people to approach. So,
yeah. And thinking about the archetypes and just the idea of soul that we, I like to, I don't know how successful I am, but I take Wyrd a little bit out of kind of the Germanic northern thing, and I associate it with Taoism, with Tao, associate it with psychology, and with psyche, soul, and I do think that everybody is on a soul journey, and I think that Wyrdcraft, there isn't like a set. It's definitely not a traditional heathen practice by any means, and it's more of kind of like an overarching theory that I think whatever Wyrdcraft is, everybody has their own Wyrd. Everybody feels drawn towards certain traditions, and it could be a totally different tradition than the one that you grew up around. When I was raised Catholic, but when I started to get into kind of the spiritual dimensions, later, and starting my own spiritual practices, it was in Tibetan Buddhism and other types of Buddhism and Tantra. So very, very much not my ancestral, well, maybe it was at some point, but
yeah, who knows?
Definitely not. Yeah. So, but then I don't know. I do think that it's just soul. Like we all have our own soul, and we're all headed back to the soul. Like we're all finding we all walk our own path on the path we all walk together, kind of thing. And that fate and destiny, we're all going to end up in the same place eventually. And so I don't know. It definitely goes into kind of spiritual themes that transcend like any one path. It's almost like the hero's journey or the heroine's journey that Joseph Campbell and other archetypal psychologists and mythologists and whatnot have talked about. But yeah. And too, about the kind of the exclusive heathens like white supremacists and whatnot. I want them to read the book too, because the whole idea is to look at yourself, to look at everything, to really look at your thoughts, behaviors, the feelings in your body, look at your relationships, look at the world around you, and what is working, what is not working. Like, are we happy? Like, does white supremacy really make you calm? Does it really bring you peace? Does it bring one joy and love? Does it bring more love? Does it you see destruction for what it is? You look at the shadow, you look at, it's the whole point is to bring awareness. And I think that I trust that process, because I think the more awareness one brings to one's life and path, the more one aligns to nature. And I think nature is a naturally healing force. Nature doesn't need to be taught how to heal. So as a whole, I do think that white supremacists that may be open to reading something like this might see kind of the delusions through which they see the world, and like, oh wait, my happiness is connected to the happiness of my neighbor and their neighbor and their neighbor and their neighbor, and we're all in this together, and we can heal together.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the separateness is an illusion itself, that we are separate from nature or each other, or, yeah. No, I appreciated it, and I like how you talk about it there too. But yeah, I mean, I think like we had a little bit of a chat before. I was telling you, like, I kind of had to speed run this book, which, because I try to read everybody's book that comes on, and sometimes I have less time to do it. And I got your book later than I usually do. So, I felt like I was able to kind of get, um, the force of the book and kind of where you're going, but I didn't get to sit with the exercises in the book, with the meditation sessions, and the ones I read through, like just reading them was calming. So, I mean, I
Cool.
think you write them very well, and like the steps of how to get into the space. And the one that really stood out to me was just like spending these long stretches of time in a like in conversation, well, or silence really, but in a conversation
Mhm.
with
Mhm.
um natural place, and in that somewhere that's not built up by man, I guess.
Mhm.
Like I like, although there was this tiny part of me that's like, if we're really not separate from nature, could you sit on a downtown city block and have the same experience? Like, maybe, I don't know, but I do think it's easier when there's not that much
Mhm.
distraction. um but yeah, just
Definitely.
this spending this very long period of time, like a day, hours, and really listening and paying attention, and you know absorbing what you can really get in that time. And I was like, a lot of people say, I don't have time for that. And it was like, well, what is that? If you're busy, then you meditate for a full hour, not 20 minutes. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, to take that time to have that experience, like, okay, like I'm figuring out how to make this happen as soon as possible now. So
Mhm.
yeah, just the idea of it was inviting just on the page to do that. So
Mhm. Yeah, it's my wonder, or something, or curiosity, or is that, you read it and you can feel into it. That's the memory. That's you're remembering something.
mhm.
That the exercises are kind of just, they're helping people remember stuff they already know. And I do think that you can meditate on the bus and go to the busy square, at the train station, and meditate while you're shopping. And it's you don't of course it's great to have that time to go into nature and to just sit, and breathe. But yeah, not everybody has access to nature, and not everybody has the time to do it.
Mhm.
So yeah, making what one already does, just bringing awareness to life as
Mhm.
is.
Yeah.
That's and a lot of people don't like to do that because, well, myself included, right? It's because as we or I do that, I become aware of the things that don't feel good, or the things I don't like, or the things,
Yeah.
especially in the city, you see poverty, or just, it's funny, my Siri just turned on. Um, yeah, you see things you don't want to see, but
Yeah.
it's things we need to see. If so, coming from the point of view of a therapist, you kind of have to see the wound before you heal the wound. You have to feel, yeah, you have to see the wound and feel the wound before you can heal the wound. So
Mhm.
becoming aware in the city is a really important thing. Becoming aware of, in the hard times, the challenging times,
Yeah.
it's good information to have, because it's guiding. It can guide one towards what needs to be done.
Yeah, I do think, I don't know, I guess because mindfulness got kind of corporatized, that
Mm-hmm.
I think it's easy to dismiss, but um it is important, and it is difficult sometimes. I think you're right. Like, I don't know how mindful I want to be when I'm trying to speed run the grocery store to get out of there as quickly as possible. But what
Mm-hmm.
what would that teach me if I could, if I could take the time to do that in that moment? Like, what would I get out of that experience?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it's an interesting, right now, thought experiment, but perhaps later an actual experiment,
Yeah.
to see. So,
Yeah, I remember sitting on the bus. I rode the bus around San Francisco a lot when I lived in the Bay Area, and there'd be people who lived on the streets, who would get on the bus, and they smelled pretty bad. Just I don't know how long they didn't shower, just living under the elements, and wow, that smell, and just kind of meditating with that, just like this is a part of life.
Yeah.
And I think that comes from my kind of background working with Tantra and stuff. I was in a Tantra group for a while, and they actually have deities, the goddess of pollution, the goddess of, all these things that we generally try to push aside, death and whatnot. So it's seeing the divinity that's inherent in everything. Yeah. And yeah, it's not always easy. Well, that's just how it is. I don't know, in my experience, and
I think that is probably somewhat universal, that some things we don't want to sit with for very long, or we don't want to think about. And I think about, like kind of the example you gave when you're thinking about something like that, when you are confronted with the fact that, your neighbors don't have houses, basically, is what that experience is. Like, you're sharing space with people who don't have shelter or don't have access to clean water to bathe, and those kind of things. And then, if you really sit with that, like, where's your responsibility in that? Where's your culpability? Like, how are you part of the same system and you have a roof over? I mean, it's a lot to take in on your commute to work for most people, like when they're just trying to get through their day. So I understand why people shut down. Like, I like you said, I'm guilty of it too. Not even guilty. It's just sometimes a survival mechanism to do that. So I think, it is embracing that edge case for a lot of us to make that decision. And then and do you act on those things? What do you do once you've had, you've seen the wound, like you said, so what do you do next? It's a lot to dig in.
Good question. Yeah. We have a lot of guides to help us, elders who can help us answer those questions. And, I've had my own elders who've helped me, and, I do, I don't know, one thing I was thinking of while you were saying that was, so how to bring magic into it too. Like, okay, there's these things that I need, things that I could do. Oh my gosh, there's so much suffering. Like, how can I bring my magic to that? And not just use magic to attract a lover, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's awesome. But how can we use magic to heal as many things and people, and to heal nature, to heal ourselves? Magic, right? It's powerful. It's a mystery, and it's a miracle in many ways. And I think there are a lot of people who are applying magic to social change and environmental change and psychological change and all that. So let's keep doing it together. We're all here to help each other. Like, those questions that are hard to answer. How can I do this? Well, how can we do it? How can we do it together?
Yeah.
And we all have gifts, that we all have our own healing magic to offer to the world. And it brings me a lot of joy to help people explore that and find that. Of course, I benefit a lot. When someone else finds their healing magic, I benefit from that. So you could say it's selfish pursuit of mine. But I mean, it is also that, I think about it in that if we're not separate, if they find their healing, then we're all finding it. And, the microcosm reflects the macrocosm. Like, if you heal, your life, then that's part of healing the whole, kind of thing. So. Yep.
I feel
just
like
go a day at a time, right?
Yeah. No. Yeah. And I feel like, like you said, I think your book is like an encapsulated discussion of this that everybody will have who encounters the book or listens to this podcast or, whatever. Like, it's just kind of like sending out ripples, like you said, to let's look at these things in this big ways. And I do appreciate that, your book and that, this kind of bubbling up in the occult, witchcraft, cunning person, whatever label people like to use, movement there does seem to be this turn toward like, how can we fix the big problems? Not just, like you said, not just the ones that we encounter in our daily lives, or in addition to the ones we encounter, how do we fix the big stuff?
Yeah, in addition, I like that.
Yeah. So, but in the interest of time, before we get to our last question, which is a little bit of a game of chance, I want to give you an opportunity just to tell folks how to get in touch with you and maybe what's coming up on the horizon. Like I said, this will air toward the end of April. So kind of give people an idea of what to look for or how to find you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, as far as how to find me online, www.wyrdwildweb.com. And that's weird with a Y. And my Instagram is the same, Weird Wild Web. Facebook, I believe, is just Ash McKernan. And I do have music sites too, but I can't name the URL for that.
We can put that in the show notes.
Okay. Yeah. And as far as, I'm going to be doing a couple bookstore visitations, but that'll be in early April. So after that, I will be attending some festivals over the summer and hopefully doing workshops. I'm in the process of applying for those, but there's a place in Ohio called Wisteria, and they do, year-round, festivals. But I'll be trying to do a workshop at one called Starwood that they have there, and possibly the summer solstice one. It's a great place, amazing outdoor, in the Appalachian foothills of Southeast Ohio. Just a wonderful, wonderful community and good time and powerful magic there. And other, let's see, Northeast thing, possibly at the end of summer. And I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. I'm definitely going to be getting out there with other podcasts and doing workshops. Like, I want to do some psyche-therapy kind of weird related process groups where we get together, the group of people, and explore weird together, as individuals, our individual weird, but also our collective weird as a group, and our larger collective weird connected to the weird of the earth, and that we're all in this process and realizing our gifts, our own weird, and our potential, and our own magic. And so a couple of those will be in the works, and involving more dance too. I really love dance and movement in general, and we all have our own way of dancing too. So I look forward to doing dance workshops, and kind of mixing magic and movement together in a ritual kind of space. So I'll be experimenting a little bit with that. I'll be doing, in my workshops in April, which will have passed by the time this comes out. But yeah. Awesome. And then maybe I'll be playing some music, some shows too. But yeah, I'll post stuff to my social media for all this. It's a good
place to catch that kind of stuff. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you. And so for our last question, I'm going to roll a die, and depending on what the weird and fates decide, if you get, depending on what number you get, you'll get a question about death, sex, religion, politics, or money. And if I roll a 6, you get to pick which one you want. So, let's see what the fates have to say. 6, you get to choose.
Okay.
What would you like?
Let's see. Well, let's go with it's kind of a split between sex and death here, so maybe they'll kind of combine or something.
Okay.
But I'll say I'll say sex.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you talk about it briefly in the book, and there's a couple of different places where you kind of mention like the experience of sex with yourself or with the other person and how the weird fits into that. So I guess kind of
Mm.
what I was thinking of this question is like, what is your, I guess, your response when someone goes sex and weird, go? Like what, how do you see those things together? Like
Mm.
how do is it experiential, all of the pieces of that in, I guess, a short answer of sorts. So
Yeah. All right. Well, I asked for it, I guess. Let me so yeah, sex and sex and weird sex. Yeah, so everyone has their own weird, um, which is kind of, so everyone has their own sexuality, right? That's a part of one's weird, one's sexuality, how what turns them on, what they like, what they don't like, um, what they are curious about, what they want to explore, um, what they want to stay really far away from. Bringing awareness to sex, to one's relationship with sex, and with sexual intimacy, with eroticism. It's I guess it's just kind of an invitation into what is the mystery of sex. I do think that there are there are layers to sex, and there's a decent amount of both light and shadow in sex. So all wonderful things to explore, which will reveal a lot about not only where you came from, but where you are and where you're going. So I think sex is super powerful. It's a form of magic in its own right, and just like writing is magic, and expressing, speaking, thinking, all of these things are magic. And yeah, sex is really edgy. It can be a very triggering, edgy thing for a lot of people, and mm,
I also think it can be ridiculous too when you really
mm,
like extrapolate like the mechanics of
mm,
sex as a human. Like this is pretty. It's
mm.
pretty weird. I mean, it's. There's a
Mm-hmm.
line. I think it's Robert Haas, and I'm probably misquoting who it is, but it's one of those lines of poetry that just kind of sticks with you over life. He described, you know, how the gods watch humans have sex, and it's like two featherless birds flopping around in the puddle of a bed. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
yeah. I mean, it's just, like it is kind of ridiculous too. And sometimes that ridiculousness can be part of the joy of it. And sometimes it makes you, there's a lot of shame around it too. So
Yeah, yeah. I like that. Yeah, it is hilarious. Sex can be hilarious. And of course, there's so much comedy that's been done around sex. And
yeah.
um, it's hilarious. It can be terrifying. It can be liberating and fun and playful, and so many, and creative, and so many other things. But yeah, it's again like, yeah, it's, I guess, weird craft is an invitation to explore the nature of it, and the nature of it for, as a collective, as a human, but also the nature of it as an individual. What does it
Mm-hmm.
mean? What is what do you want to explore with it? What do you not want to? And I don't know, also, trauma. Like there's a lot of people who have sexual trauma, and it's good to process that. It's good to process any trauma, and to bring back healing flow, bring back just aliveness, and because that flow, it wants to go somewhere. It wants to. Yeah, I'm thinking about sex and orgasm. as one place that sex wants to go. It wants to go into infinity, that infinite orgasmic thing. And I think that's where consciousness and being and, wants to go in general. So sex is a great kind of, I don't know, technology, for lack of a better word, to use to remember that infinite kind of nature of ourself.
Yeah. Almost like another door. Almost like another door to go through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that idea. Awesome. Well, Ash, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for writing this very interesting book that I hope people will check out. And
thank you.
Yeah, like if you'd picked death, I would have asked you if you were going to write a book about death, since you bring it up at the beginning or at the very end of the book, you talk about death. So when you write that book or whatever the next book is, we'll have you again and we'll talk about it some more.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really nice to talk with you and fun to explore these ideas. And it's cool to learn a little bit about your Wyrd.
Oh, same. So
yeah,
thank you.
I look forward to chatting more down the road.
Me too. WitchLit is a production of Thousand Volt Press. Our intro music is Cosmic Glow by Andrew Kay, and our outro music is Voices by Alexander Shanekar. Transcripts and all our previous episodes are available at witchlitpod.com, and you can follow us on Instagram at witchlitpod. Thanks for listening and for reading witchy.